You are hired by a group of freedom fighters to free their city from the scourge of a tyrannical lord.
Where is this, Lord?
Well, you'd be in this castle in the middle of the map.
We go straight there and face him down.
Then, in a single combat session, the campaign was over. Alright, Dawa. If it's your second time here, subscribe. In any medium of storytelling, the intent needs to be defined as early as possible, albeit not with complete clarity as to leave enough room for development. Because without a sense of direction, a story will always feel slow, regardless of how much is actually happening. But we can't allow the story to progress too quickly, or we simply don't have one. Good writing, therefore, is the paradoxical task of creating a clear sense of direction without being very clear about it, and then restricting progress in a manner that feels like progression. When you break it down, you really start to realise why so many people suffer from writer's block. Ooh, incidentally, I'm writing a script about overcoming that too, and I still don't have a regular upload schedule, so you'll have to click the bell if you want to catch that one. Authors and screenwriters have the advantage of having full autonomy over their protagonists, while video game developers have long given up on being creative about it.
You gotta be level 63 to equip this. This area is too high a level for you.
Unfortunately, in RPG land, we're yet to succumb to such laziness, therefore we have to overcome this exclusively through narrative means. I suppose we should add the third paradox then, giving players the sense of freedom whilst also retaining control over the narrative. Relax, Taffy's got you. Explaining exactly how to do this is what this video is all about. In tabletop games, GMs control the narrative by leading the party through a series of breadcrumbs. A breadcrumb can be a place, a person, an object, or simply a piece of information, and it's good to mix them up, but let's work with an example from here. The party needs to track down and kill a werewolf. Of course, to give us room for plot development, but still maintaining clear intent. We're not going to put it that way in our hook. Instead, we're going to say, investigate and put an end to killings in and around a rural village. Within this tale, one of the breadcrumbs could be an NPC tavern lady. When questioned, she would explain that since the night of the last killing, her child has been acting strange. At first, they put this down to the fact that they lost their security blanket, or blankie, that evening. But they've become so quiet that they cannot get so much more than a few words out of them. She has not been able to get the child to tell her exactly what they saw, but does tell the party the few mumbled words she has managed to extract. Those words would then be the next breadcrumb. When analysing these, the party should be able to figure out that the child was playing near the woodsman's hut at the time. Upon investigating the site, the party finds a small pink blanket embroidered with little chubby squirrels. The blanket, of course, would be the next breadcrumb, armed with which the mother will succeed in getting her child to tell the party exactly what they saw, leading not only to the conclusion that these attacks are the result of a werewolf, but also of the werewolf's identity. Now, of course, all this works well and good in theory, but we all know how unpredictable those whimsical little bastards we call players can be. And they only need to miss a single breadcrumb for them to lose the trail completely, right? Well, the trail can't be too smooth, as having a little stop and head scratch now and again will stop the party from becoming overly complacent with an easy ride and keep them invested in what's going on. So a few intermittent stumbles along the path is typically a net positive, but the party will eventually become discouraged if they do remain aimless for too long. Are we adding a fourth paradox, allowing the party to feel lost without actually being lost? There are exactly 3 ways in which a party can stumble along the trail: circumvention, misinterpretation, and disorientation. Well, there's also mutiny, but we're not going to go there. Circumvention is when the party approach the breadcrumb trail in a way that you hadn't thought of, which can cause them to skip one or more breadcrumbs entirely. For example, one of the party members may request to see the barmaid's child, then immediately cast calm emotions before asking them to describe exactly what they saw. The instinct of a newer GM is typically to immediately disallow it, as it's not what the party are supposed to do. Don't ever do that, because throwing up an invisible barrier against a perfectly intelligent approach is one of the fastest ways of losing your table, and will definitely break any immersion they've gained up until that point. Typically, circumvention isn't a problem by itself, so first of all, don't panic. If you need time to adjust, just say to your party, "Guys, give me a moment, I wasn't expecting you to do that." All you then need to do is ask yourself, what would actually happen here? Well, in this case, the party would be given the exact same description had they not skipped the blankie quest, so they're still perfectly on track. But If an instance of circumvention were to cause the party to skip a clue that they would have used again later, it may result in misinterpretation or disorientation further down the line, but cross that bridge when you come to it. For now, just keep moving forward. Next, we have misinterpretation. This is when the party draws the wrong conclusion from the last breadcrumb, which can send them in the wrong direction altogether. For example, the few words the barmaid has extracted from the child got mixed up with an improvised dialogue with the carpenter earlier in the session, for instance, which has caused the party to conclude the location of the blankie to be the carpenter's house in the middle of town instead of the woodsman's hut on the edge of town. Again, don't panic.
Instead, only try to realize the truth.
A lost blankie can be wherever it needs to be. Unless there's a necessity for the child to have been playing in any particular place that night, just mentally move the blankie to the carpenter's house and carry on as though that's what it's always been and mention nothing to your party about the switch. Lastly, we have disorientation. This is where the party have lost sight of the trial and they know it, i.e. an accidental derail. At least with misinterpretation, the party are confidently moving in some direction so you can move shit around it. But with disorientation, you have a party that's clutching to straws and on the brink of giving up on the trial altogether. This leads to the crux of the video, and a truth when realized is not only the simplest fix to all of these problems, but it makes it impossible for anything you GM to ever become derailed again.
What truth?
There is no spoon.
It's all make-believe. There's no reason for your breadcrumbs to be a rigid list of events that force your party into a drab game of guessing the items on an arbitrary to-do list. Breadcrumbs should be a list of clues that can easily be dropped in front of your party regardless of which direction they're moving in, leaving them feel like they're figuring things out all by themselves, but all the while you remain in complete control over the narrative and its pace. You certainly can't add any skill checks into a rigid list because a single nat 1 would completely tank your campaign. Don't leave it up to waiting for them to speak to the right NPC or search the right room. You instead should be using breadcrumbs to reward players to come up with an idea that excites them or simply to move things along because you feel the narrative's a bit slow. And it's so much easier if you write them this way in the first place. So let's look back at this example again and see if we can come up with a better way of writing these breadcrumbs to give us the freedom we need to run it. First of all, the tavern lady. We've already learned that objects can be moved about easily enough, but surely a tavern lady is only going to be found in so many places, right? Well, who says it has to be the tavern lady? Here's a breadcrumb technique for you that I'm coining Taffy's avatar. Taffy's avatar is a breadcrumb that can become any NPC that fits a simple criterion. In this case, it would be an NPC of breeding age who the party have questioned about the events surrounding the night of the last killing. And if you feel that criteria has happened too quickly, want to slow down the narrative but fear this criteria may not come up again, you could so easily have the avatar catch up with the party later with the line, "Now that I've been thinking about it, there is something." Next would be the location the child was playing at that night and the location of the lost blankie. Now, I like that blankie route, so I would write that bit in as a side note, but any reasonable means of calming the child down should have a chance of working. Lastly, we have the description given by the child. I'm sure you're getting the idea at this point. This piece of information can be dropped in a multitude of different ways, not just calming the child. The party may look for the child's diary, or look through their drawings. Maybe the child hadn't opened up to the parent, but maybe they had opened up to a friend. When you think about it, that description doesn't even need to come from a child, but anyone who may have otherwise been engaged up until this point, or even a diary left behind by someone who's fled the town. In summation, anything reasonable that the party tries when you're ready to cough up a breadcrumb works. And that's it, guys. From now on, keep your breadcrumbs nice and fluid. Fluid breadcrumbs. If you like, tell me in the comments below of an incident where your party lost sight of the breadcrumb trial, and we'll see if we can come up with a solution with the power of hindsight. If you're new here and would like to join the arcade, roll some dice and share some memes with us, I will share links below. Don't forget to feed YouTube's algorithm on your way out, and I'll see you in the next shit I publish. Cheers. I'll do. I can't be fucked. You're taking too many takes.